Shalom, Israel. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started out on 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohanan. And since 1969, we've been teaching the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We are the true Jews of the Bible. I am Priest and Officer 50 HEADQUATERS, holding the class down for Officer 5000, Azahab. And joining me today is Priest and Officer 5000, Yatzidon. Let's clap it up for Most High. Today is the third part of the series, the fundamentals of the Holy Tongue. This is part 3. And each week what we've been doing is progressing from what we learned from the previous week into the final thing of going from learning the Hebrew characters all the way up to reading words and now sentences. So by the end of this class, we're going to be completing sentences. So we've come a long way. The first part is going to be review, because the key to understanding this is repetition. It's really important that when you do this, you should be writing this down over and over and over again. As repetitive as it might be, that's the way that it will help you remember it. So as we started out with the English language, and that is read and written from left to right. So starting out with the letters in English: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. Just I'm stopping here right now also to show you that there's a total of 26 letters in the alphabet in English. This is the first 13 letters. Then we go N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. That's another 13 letters. Now, as basic as this sounds, you know, most of us grew up to this and we're accustomed to actually learning this. And, you know, as a child, it might seem that we did this so long ago that it was, it seems easy today, but when you first learned it, there was a lot of things and nuances, you know, to try to actually learn this. So I taught you before, as a child, I remember singing this as a song. So the song went like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So that right there was a song that we were taught in a way to memorize this. And the most important part is just learning the sound of what we just said. Because if we get the sound down first, once we learn the Hebrew, we're going to translate that to the Hebrew letters and the characters. But it's first to learn sounds I find easier. So when we get to the Hebrew, it'll be a little bit easier. So as we mentioned before from Google AI, the origin of writing from left to right can be traced back to the ancient Greeks, who after writing from right to left, like the Phoenicians, eventually transitioned to a left to right script. And essentially, this is a more recent language. And the Most High gave us a pure language. And the pure language was actually written from right to left. So immediately what we grew up with is backwards compared to what the Most High actually gave us in the beginning. And that's also meant to confuse you, because when you start reading Hebrew the first time, you're going to naturally attempt to read left to right. And you're not going to see the words because you're reading it in reverse. So we're going to learn how to read the other way, from right to left. Now, in the book by Yale University, right here we showed you before, this is Biblical Hebrew, okay, by Bonnie Cattell, Vicky Hoffer, Rebecca Wright, and you can see it's Yale University. And as we open up to the very first pages here, I believe it's first page 3. That it says, let's see if that can zoom in or not. The Hebrew alphabet is the oldest in the world and still in use today. Our own alphabet is a descendant of it by a circuitous root. The text of the Hebrew Bible we use today reflects several periods of development. Originally, only the consonants were used. So, if you learn in our English what our consonants were these vowels, and they created sounds with A, E, I, O, and U. And this formed a lot of different words and letters. But in Hebrew, there were no vowels. So Hebrew is read and written from right to left. And I gave you a song to remember. Now, there are 22 letters. In the Hebrew alphabet. Okay. And there's different ways of memorizing this. I created this like a song because I like to count on my fingers, 5 at a time. So what I did, I created 5 sounds, or 5 letters and 5 syllables for the first one. So my song was this. Abba Gada Ha. That's the first 5. Waza Kataya. That's the next 5. Kalamanasa. That's the next 5. I Pa Taza. It's actually 3 characters, but there's 4 sounds in, because Taza counts as 2 sounds or 2 syllables. And then Kwarashata, which is the last 4. So I memorized it this way because it was easy for me to learn it this way. So we mentioned that the first character, or the first sound, was ah. And this ah sound is pretty much in every single letter. There's a few exceptions, but every single letter has the, let's say for the most part, has the ah sound, and it's the first one. So think of this as your letter A, what they later converted into English. So it was ah, ba, ga, da, ha. Then we have our next set of 5 characters and 5 syllables, which is wa, za, ka, And when we say this letter, it's ka, as if there's something in the throat, not just a ka, it's a ka. Ka, ta, ya. And I remembered that the sequence started with wa. So first I memorized this sequence of 5. Then I memorized this sequence of 5. And sometimes I couldn't remember them, and I dropped off, and I was like, wait a minute, I know there's 5 in it. But I remember this one starts with ah, this one starts with wa. Then we created a next sequence. Another 5 characters, another 5 syllables. Ka, la, ma, na, sa. And this sequence started with the ka. Then, this is where the song broke up a little bit, something different. You're going to see there's actually 3 characters, but 4 syllables. And this is the I, pa, ta, za. Now, ta, za is 1 character, but it's the only one that has 2 different sounds to it, so 2 syllables to it. So then I memorized, all right, next one was 3 characters, but there's 4 sounds. And it starts with I. So I just memorized this. I, pa, ta, za. I, pa, ta, za. I, pa, ta, za. So I did each one of these. So essentially now our song is ah, wa, ka, I. As far as, all right, let's just get the first part. We'll fill in the other ones as we learn the sequences. But it's just giving you a way to help you memorize it. The last part of the song was 4, 4, which means there's 4 characters, 4 syllables. So qua, ra, sha, and tha. So next sequence, qua, ra, sha, tha, qua, ra, sha, tha, qua, ra, sha, tha. So we got 22 letters total. I memorized it like this: a, wa, ka, I, qua. So I memorized 5 going down that way also. So it's just a starting point reference. There's many ways of doing it. Doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you do memorize the sounds. And you'll see that pretty much every one of these letters has the a in it. Ba, ga, da, ha, sa, ha, ta, ya, la, ma, na, sa, pa, ta, za, qua, ra, sha, tha. So it pretty much has the letter A, or the a sound used throughout. So as you see, it's a lot easier than English in that there's not these typical kind of vowels like these E's and all that. Because if you think about it, what does English do? It says A. That's not an A sound. But they try to say A. And then they say B. B is like, if you spelled it out, it's like B-E. C is like C-E. C. D is like D-E. Right? F is like E-F. G is like G-E. So you're seeing that, first of all, the letter E is not here. So that vowel, as you see, is not even in the language of Hebrew. And this was the first pure language. So it's a lot simpler and easier to see. and it's a lot easier to understand. So another way of doing this is you memorize it like a phone number. So if we do a typical like United States phone number, we dial +1 for the United States, then we dial the area code, like 1, 2, 3, and then the 7-digit number, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So if you actually count the numbers here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is 11 numbers. So if it's easier for you that you could memorize phone numbers, essentially you have to memorize 2 phone numbers in terms of the sounds. Okay, so that would be, I wrote 11 across. A, ba, ga, da, ha. A, ba, ga, da, ha. Wa, za, ka, ta, ya. Ka. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 11 characters. And then the rest, la, ma, na, sa. La, ma, na, sa. I, pa, ta, za. I, pa, ta, za. Qua, ra, sha, tha. Qua, ra, sha, tha. Here's the next 11. So you can choose whichever way works best for you. Memorize it like this, or if you have really good memory and you can remember like phone numbers like that. This is like essentially equivalent of memorizing 2 different phone numbers. But the most important thing is you have to memorize this. In order to read Hebrew, you have to memorize the sounds. So you have to get to the point of abagadaha, wazakataya, kalamanasa, ipataza, kwarashata. Just get the sound down first. So you can take a screenshot of this right here. This will be a good screenshot point. I'm going to take one myself. Is there any questions at all yet?
No question.
Kind.
Hey, shalom, sis. Y'all, shalom, Allah, Hashem, y'all, shalom. Sister Kiara, this woman, Yola, son of Grace.
Shalom, sister. All right. So everyone should have a screenshot of that. Get yourself started. I'm going to erase this here. Now what we're going to do Just go a little bit deeper into what these letters actually stood for. Clean the board because I want a nice clean board so the camera sees everything clean. So next, you recall in Matthew 15, verse 24, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. There's a reason I think the Most High and Yahushua is calling us sheep. This almost sounds like as if we're speaking a very primitive language because it is simple. You know, the bah, sounds like sheep. So if we know his voice, we can speak his language. So
most real quick, I will say, right? When you look at you've been to the slaughter of the land.
okay.
You see how the sheep, how powerless they are.
They're helpless.
They're helpless.
That's right.
You can come and you're gonna slaughter the sheep and they just get helpless, just deliver themselves to your hand. That's us as a people.
That's right.
We are helpless. So that is the characteristic of the nation of Israel. We are helpless without the Most High.
So grace. The water for that. So let's go into deeper of where these letters actually form words. So we know the sounds. Get enough space. So we have the ah. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to write 11 down. Then we're going to write the next 11 down. So it's another way of seeing it and going deeper into what and how these characters were formed. So we have a lot, which means cow. So the first character looks like a cow. So if you turn it, maybe you want to see it from this angle, you might see it looks more like a cow that way. You get the horns and like the head. So you see, it's just turned to the side, but that's actually a symbol for like a cow. And if you think of the English alphabet did, they flipped this upside down and called this the letter A. So you'll see that when you get to the primitive, pure language, where these other languages took from. So that is the ancient. And when you come to class, make sure you get one of these. This is very important because this is how I learned it. So you'll see it's written from left to right. You see the ah, ba. You have the Hebrew ancient up top, and then you have the English pronunciation underneath it. So the first one's ah, next one's ba, then there's ga, da, ha, wa, za, ka, ta, ya, ka, la, ma, na, sa, I, pa, ta, za, qua, ra, sha, tha. So that's in the ancient. And then you'll see in the modern version down below, you use the same sound that's up here in the English, and it just brings it down. So you see it's a, ba, ga, da, ha. Wa, za, ka, ta, ya. Ka, la, ma, na, sa. I, pa, ta, za. Qua, ra, sha, tha. And then you'll notice there's also a secondary row here. And the secondary row is that when you use one of these characters at the end of a word, there's a different character for it. So for this one, you see there's a different one. This one is a different one. This one is a different one. This one is a different one. And this one is a different one. So they just made it unnecessarily complicated, but that's all that is. So when you're writing characters at the end, if you're using the modern, you just use, and you see these other symbols, it's just the end of the word, but it's the same sound as what's up here. And again, this down here is just someone's handwriting or interpretation of writing it. So you'll see many variances of when people write their characters. But what I try to do is I try to teach this version of the modern Assyrian, because when you read it in the Tanakh, that's what it's kind of preserved in. Now you'll see it more complicated in there because you're going to see dots and dashes and all this stuff that comes across it. That's the Yiddish man trying to make vowels and different sounds. You can ignore all that. The most important point is just to remember the characters, the basic characters of how they're drawn. So we got the A sound. And then we're going to keep the ancient in this row. Then we're going to put the modern in this row. So the A character is written this. Okay. And then the next one we have is the Ba sound. And Ba is actually short for Yath, which is tent. And we have our Ba sound. That's the Ba sound. Here's our symbol. Looks like a backwards B or an upside down B. Okay. And then in the modern, you have this, and it almost looks more like a tent. So it's another way of seeing it. Then we have the Ga. And the Ga is short for Gamal, which is camel. And the Ga looks like a camel neck. Now it's not as long. You'll notice the Ga when you hear it as compared to the other ancients. It's a little bit shorter. Okay. And then the modern version of that, it's like down, 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 down. So you can see both of them look like a camel. So it's a good way to remember that. See, we're a very visual people, and the language is very visual. So these things, especially the ancient, you're going to see they represent physical objects. So the words mean something because of what it looks like. So it's pictorial, the language. So next we have is the Da. The Da is short for Daloth, which is door. And this is a triangle in the ancient. And then you can see in the modern, it's it's written one line across, then a squiggly line down. So that's the da symbol. Point a little bit farther. Da. And then you can see this one looks like a door. Then you have the ha. And that was short for ana, which means behold. And the ha, in the ancient, it's kind of like drawing a backwards F with the 3 lines. Ha. And in the modern, you start with drawing like you did the da. So one line across, then a squiggly line down. I'd say these squigglies, you're like making the letter S a lot of times. And we add another squiggly S underneath it. Now, you're going to notice that there is a gap between here. So that's very important as you distinguish the characters, because you're going to see when you write the Assyrian, a lot of them look very similar, but the subtleties is what's important to notice. Next, we got the wa. And the wa is short for wa, the fish hook. And you think of a hook, it's almost like the letter U, a line drawn down. So it's like a hook. And the modern version, kind of similar to the top part of the ga house drawn with a diagonal line and then a straight line underneath it. So it's also a hook. Next, we have the za, which is short for Zion, which is weapon. And this, as you see, is just the letter Z in the ancient. And then in the modern, it's like a squiggly up top and a squiggly below. That's for weapon, or Zion. Next we have Kawama, Ka, with the C-H-A-A sound. That's the Ka. That's if you have something in your throat. Ka. As I exaggerate that. Ka, wa, ma. And this is the fence. And you can see how it's drawn. Looks like a fence. One line down, another line down, and 1, 2, 3 lines across. So it looks like a fence. Now this one looks very similar to the hana, or the ha sound. Starts off again by drawing the da. So let's do this first, this motion. One line across, squiggly down. But unlike this one, when we do another squiggly down, see this one has a gap. This one we start from the top. So it's actually 2 like S's connected to a line. So that's the difference in this character, because this and this look very similar. But this one's completely closed, this one's opened. And they were both formed out of this dot symbol in the modern. Next we have is Tana, or Tana. So we have the ta sound. It's ta, na, ah. And Tana ah is basket. And the symbol looks as if you're drawing a basket top and you're looking down to it. So think of like an X and then like a circle around it. So it's like the top part looking down into a basket. And in the modern, it's as if you're looking at the basket on the side. So it's almost like a U. And then you're seeing like the side view of the basket. Next we have is the Ya, which is short for Yad, which means your hand. And the Ya looks like the letter Z, but slanted. And then there's an extra line that goes across. So that's the Ya. And in modern, looks like that. So it's a very short character compared to the other ones in the modern. Then we have the Ka, which is short for Kop, which is your palm, or spoon. And the Ka symbol is drawn like a letter C backwards. And then you have like a letter V kind of backwards, but looks like a K flipped around. And then in the modern, this is the first one that has two characters. You have the first one, which is just like the letter C backwards, flipped over, just flipped around. And then this is used in the beginning of a word, in the middle of the word, but if it appears at the end of the word, you have a different character. And this one actually goes down lower than your other previous characters. So when you see these real long letters, you know that they're at the end of the word. That's the other character that they're using. All right, so that's the first 11. Now the next 11. We got the La, which is short for Lamad, which means learn. And the ancient is just the letter L, same as the sounds there. And the modern, it's drawn like this. So it's got a curvature to it, but that's the modern version of the L. Then you have the Ma, which is Mayam, which is water. And the Ma in the ancient, it's almost like a little W, and then like a J. That's what that symbol stands for. And then in the modern, there's two versions. You have this rounded one, up, down, over, and it's squiggly. You're going to see that as an open piece to it. Think of that open piece, later part is drawn there, but it's actually opened. Then you're going to see another version that appears at the end of the word. It's more squarish. It has a lip at the end, but it's actually sealed, completely sealed. So that's the two variances of the ma sound in the Assyrian. Then you have the na sound, and that na is short for nawan, which is sprout. This is drawn like a little V, then like the letter J. And then there's two variances of the nawan in the modern version. First part is kind of like how the wa is drawn here. So it's like an angle down, a line down, and a line across. And then for the second part that appears at the end of the word, notice the width of this is not as wide. So think of about the same width, then down long. It's a little bit exaggerated, but you'll notice that it's long like this one here. Okay, you see long like this. So there is a difference. The ka is actually pretty wide, and the na is kind of shortened, so it's not as wide. But they're both like the same length, similar to it. Next, we have the sa, which is short for samak. And that means establish. And the sa sound in the ancient is one line down, and then 1, 2, 3 lines across. So like you're establishing a stick or a pole in the ground. And in the modern version, almost looks like the letter O, but it's kind of square up top. It goes around, and there's a little lip at the end. So that's the sa sound in the modern. Next, we have the I sound, which is short for ayan, which means I. In the ancient, it's just a circle, because it's meant to be your eye. And in the modern, it's almost like 1, 2, 3, and it's squiggly. It kind of looks like, in a way, like a Y. That's how it's the I. Next, we have the pa. The pa sound, which when we put an H to it, it means mouth. And in the ancient, the pa looks like the side of a mouth. So you draw a line, almost like a J. Looks like the side of your mouth. If I was this way, like the side of a mouth. Now the pa has two different sounds with two different characters in the modern. So I like to describe it as like a G, kind of like flipped upside down though. So you do 1, 2, and then like a letter C. So that's the pa. That's if it starts in the first part of the word or in the middle of the word. But if it appears at the end of the word, you start out the same way, and then go up and down. And this one is longer than the typical character. So this appears at the end of the word. And it looks like a backwards P. Next we have taza. The taza is actually short for tazad, which means side. So I like to think this as a man laying on his side. And how it's drawn is the ancient. Line down, then like the letter Z. So think of a guy laying on his side. Tazad. Now in the modern, there's two versions of this. So it's like 1, 2, 3, over, up, that. So we see something similar like that. This is the modern version. It starts a word, it's a middle word, and then if it ends the word, it's like this, one down, then up, and then over. So that's what appears at the end of the word. Also, we make it a little bit more down just so it sticks out. You see all these that end at the end, they're all longer than the other characters. Next we have the qua. Sound, which is actually part of Hwam, which means rise. So in the ancient, think of a sunrise. So you have like a line across, it's like the sun, then a line coming down. So think of like up and around, like the sun is rising. And the modern would be a line straight down, and then over and around. So in a way, how we had the mod here, doing a curvature on the way down and over. So you can also think of this as the letter Q. If you turn this on its side. Next, we have the Ra sound. It's actually part of the word Ra'ash. Ra-ash. And that's a head. And this looks in the ancient almost like number 4 in a way. See the top part looks like a head, and that would be the neck or the body. And then turn looks like an R straight down the curve as it's created. Next, we have the sha sound. And the sha is short for shan, which is your tooth. And this looks like the letter W in the ancient, so it's kind of drawn like this. The modern is similar, just more rounded, I'd say. Put a squiggly on the top of these. It looks like a W also. And that's the sha sound. And the last one is the tha. And that tha is short for thaw, which is mark. And I like to remember this as X marks the spot. So the line on an angle, then a line across. So it's kind of like that's a little slanted. Let me do this one again. I'm trying to draw it with me being out of the way, but I'm gonna do it again now. It's just so it's straight. So looks like a cross. So the X marks the spot. And then in the modern, it starts out just like you're drawing this Ra sound here. So it's up, curvature, down. And then we're going to add another line underneath with the legs sticking out. And that's the thaw. And that's your alphabet in the modern and the Assyrian. So again, it's the same thing. A, ba, ga, da, ha. Wa, za, ha, ta, ya. Ka, la, ma, na, sa. I, pa, ta, za. Kwa, ra, sha, da. So this will be a good point to take a picture for you or a screenshot. Any questions at all, sir?
No questions.
Questions? All right. Shalom, Trooper Rapaya Allah. You're there. What was that? Kayan? Kayana?
Kiana.
Kiana.
Yeah, say shalom to the church.
Shalom, sir. Shalom, sir. All right. Take a screenshot of this here. And next, we're going to go into prepositions. So this is, again, a recall of what we did last week. And I'm doing this again because this is a progression. By the end of this class, we will be having full sentences written out. But each one of these parts is critically important so you can understand before we get to the sentences or before we even creating words, how they're actually formed. I'll clear out the board so it's nice and clean. It comes on the camera okay. Now each time I'm repeating this, I'm going a little bit faster just because it is a slight review because we did this the previous week, but I'm doing this again because, again, repetition is key. Eventually, you're going to be doing this on your own, and eventually, you're going to be like, oh, I got it. It's just repetition. That's all it is. And at that point, by the end of the class, you'll have everything to know how to actually read Hebrew and write it, for the most part. There's always nuances and different tricks and things that you learn along the way. You know, so that's why Sabbath services, which is on Saturday, it's practice of reading. It's one of my favorite services and classes because everything I'm learning right here, I'm just practicing real time. I remember the very first time I was called up to read Hebrew, and I was like, I don't know how to read Hebrew. You were put on the spot, but you know what? It made you encourage yourself to like, I'm not going to go up there again and not at least try or have any idea. But just coming to this class, by the end of this class, you'll be actually able to do this. Sure. And that goes to the great teaching of Officer Hazahab, Officer Ibadja, Officer Aisha Ya'ala, and Officer Yatzar, and Officer Parataza. I've learned this from all of them. So this is a big summary of, let's just say, the best of the best in the practices that they taught me, and I'm teaching it to you in hopefully a way that you can really memorize this and understand it. If there's any questions, please, put something in the chat. Let me know, if anything's confusing at all along the way.
Anything come to mind, put it in the chat. If you have a question, put it in the chat. And Officer Sha'afon will do his best to answer your question.
Okay, so now we're going to go with prepositions and possessive adjectives. So now we are firmly established what the letters are, what the sounds are. So now we're going to start learning how words are formed. Okay? Now this is unique because unlike English has almost a separate word for everything, and Hebrew, it combines it all together into one word. So there's essentially a root word, and there's things that can appear before the root word, and things that can appear after the root word, but it's all put together in one word. So this is why this is important to understand prepositions and possessive adjectives. So this is called prepositions. Think of pre, that comes before a word, and possessive adjectives. And this comes after a word. So think of this as before and after. Okay. Now, how words are written, first, you would have a preposition. Goes before a root word. Now, this is something you're going to see. A root. That's the basis of the word you see. Second, you're going to have the word itself, or the root. And third, You're going to have the possessive adjective. And that goes after. So when you're actually creating these words, it's done from right to left. So it's actually in the sequence of 1, 2, 3. 1 is the preposition, 2 is the word, 3 is the possessive adjective. So for example, Trooper Rapaliala was asking how his name was, and his name means heel, and that will be considered the root word. And there's sometimes when you see in the language, there's sometimes things before it, sometimes after, but you try to find your root word. So let's go into the actual prepositions. So these are the ones that go before. So we're going to do a. And a, if you see the a character in front, it's equal to I or I am. Okay? Then you have the ba. If you see a ba sound in front of a word, it could mean in. If you see a da at the start of the word, the da is do. If you see a ha in front of the word, the ha is the. If you see a ya in front of the word, it is he. If you see a ka in front of the word, it's like. If you see a ma in front of the word, it's of. If you see a sha, it's pertain. And if you see a tha, it's she or future tense. Now that's the English, of course. Now we went over the Hebrew characters in the last section. I could draw them again if you like. But let's just focus on the English part, just to make it easy. We can add them again later if you need to. Next, we have the prepositions, or the possessive adjectives that come after. So this is the beginning. These are prepositions, pre-words. Now we're going to do words that come after. You're going to see a lot of words or a lot of letters that we use here is also going to be here. So the same letter could have two different meanings. So if it's in the beginning of the word, it could mean something. And if it's at the end of the word, the same letter, it means something else. So we're going to go with the first one, which is Just going to put a separation just so you see this is the pre and this is the possessive adjective. So these are all the ones. And now we're going to focus on the threes over here. So the first one is Nawa. And Nawa is our or us. We have the ha. We're going to put the ha here. So if ha appears at the end of the word, it is her. We have a wa. And that's his. I forgot the wa over here. Let me add the wa here too. Ha, wa. And the wa over here is actually and. So if you see the wa in the beginning, it's actually and. And if you see it at the end of the word, it's his. Then we have the ya. And the ya at the end is my. But this is part 3, just so you realize. So this is 1, prepositions, 3, possessive adjectives. Comes at the end. Okay. Then we have the ka. And that's your or you. You see it actually 2 different ways when you look at the scriptures. Then you have come. And the come, notice it ends in an M. This is your. And this is masculine. Plural. So if you're addressing a bunch of brothers, multiple, you might see this come. Your, plural. If you're addressing a bunch of sisters, you would see con. It ends in an N. Okay? And this is your. And that will be feminine, plural. Okay? And then we have hum. And that's there. And that will be the masculine, because it ends in the M. So that's masculine, plural. And then we have hun. That's there. And that will be the feminine. Plural. Okay. Now, let's draw the characters. So we have the A in the ancient, and then do the A in the modern. That's the A. Ba. That's the ancient. The modern. Ba. The Da is the triangle. And then the line across and squiggly. Da. Then you have the Ha. And the ancient. And then the Ha again drawn just like the Da, the squiggly, with the two squigglies. So one's shorter, one's longer. That Ha has that space in between it. Then you have the Wa, which I drew in. So again, this was the U, fishhook. And then in the modern, there's a line down, diagonal, and a line down. So that was the Wa sound. Then the Ya, which was the sideways Z. Okay. And then you have this symbol. That's the Ya. Then we have the Ka, which was the letter C. This and that. And then in the modern, because this is appearing in the front of the word, you're going to use this character. Now, if it's at the end of the word, as in this case, first, this will be the modern. It's the same, but if it's at the end of the word, you use that character. So that's why it's important to realize that there's only 5 characters like that in the modern, but they have different symbols, so it has a different way of you identifying it in the modern. Then we have the Ma, which is like the W, the J, which is short for water. And then because we're at the front of a word, we use the first one, which is the rounded one, and there's a gap opening, and then you have the little squiggly up top. So this is the rounded one. The Ma, or the M, is used at the end of the word. Remember, it's a different character. So when we're going to draw this, because this is appearing at the end of the word, you're going to see the other character. So now we have the Sha, which was our W, and then the other W for the modern. Squiggly, squiggly, squiggly. That's our Sha. And the Tha is like X marks the spot, like the cross on the side. And then for the modern, is this. So you've seen this now 3 times during this class, these symbols, so this should be all familiar to you at this point. Next we have the Na, Wa. Now these are actually 2 characters. Okay. So let's give a little more space here so I can write. So we have Na, Wa. So that's in the ancient, Na, that's your N, Wa. na, wa. In the modern, we have the na, that's the N, and then the wa. Now, another concept we're going to introduce is connectors now, because now we're having two letters and actually representing a word. So what we do is that when it's individual syllables, we do an underscore like an upside down. So that'll be na, wa. So you know it's two sounds. Later on, as we go down here, this is kam. That's one syllable. So we're going to show a connector of these two in the other way. So I like to say this is upside down faces, smiley faces. So you're actually seeing the individual characters. And this happens in the modern language. So now we have the ha, which is the ha. And then we have the squiggly, the open there. So that's the ha. Then you got the wa. And then you have the wa here in the modern, ancient. Then you got the ya, which is the Z, sideways. And then you have the squiggly Y in the modern. We went over ka already. So we have the ancient and then the modern ka. And now we're going to use kam. So this is, again, it's two letters. So first, we're going to start with the ka. And then the M, the come. But now, because this is one syllable, we do like the smiley face symbol. Come. So these are our connectors. Up here, na, wa. So it says it's two different sounds. Come, as it's one sound. Okay. Now, when we do the modern version here, we got the ka, but the ending is an M. And we know the M has a different character at the end. So this one is the closed, more squarish one, but it's completely closed. It has that lip. So that's kam. Now, we don't have connectors in the modern. Now, when you see the Yiddish man trying to make these dots and dashes and all this stuff around their words, that's them attempting to make vowels and sounds. But for our sake, we could just ignore that for now. So next we have the kan. So in the ancient, the ka, and then the n, kan. So that's the feminine. It ends in an n. The kam is the masculine, as it ends in the m. So m, n. And when we draw it here, starts the ka again, but now we have to add the n. Now the n has two versions. So again, now we're going to use the second one, which is shorter than the ka sound, but it's long at the same time. So this is long, this is long. The ka is wider, and the kan here, or the n here, is shorter. All right. You should start seeing a pattern throughout all this here as you're learning this. Now we have ham and han. So we have the ha sound. Ha. And the M. Hum. One syllable. And then draw the modern. Ha. Notice it's opened again. And then, because we're using the M at the end of the word, it's the same as this one here. It's the secondary character. And it's closed. Hum. And next we have the han. Starts off the same way, the ha. And then the N, just how you have here, con. So we're doing the shorter. So it's the han. And then that's the modern. And then the ancient. Got the ha. And then the N. Just as you have con, now you have han. And this right here is our possessive adjectives that happen after. So this will be a good point to take a screenshot right now of this. And if there's any questions, let me know in the chat. Put it in the chat, please, and I'll be happy to answer any.
By honestly, excellent teaching, sir. No question yet.
The water, sir, most high in Christ. I'm taking a picture. You get to see a picture on the back of my head. So hopefully, Trooper Rapalia Allah, now you can understand when forming your name and you were looking up in the scriptures, you would have the word heal. You'll understand why you found the word heal, which was your root word, but you had certain stuff like in front of it in the scriptures. I believe it was ah, and that came first. So it was like I heal in that context, in that scripture that was written in. All right, that's a doozy. Okay, that's a big one. Now we're up to forming words pretty close. We're getting really close. How much time do I have right now? Just checking. Oh boy, I gotta go faster. Okay. So we're going to move a little bit faster because we did this last week, but I want you to see concrete examples of how this is physically used. I like to make this nice and clean for you so the camera looks clear. All right. And we're going to go with some examples. I taught you I am from the tribe of Ephraim. Okay. And we're going to go some prepositions. These are the pre ones. A few examples just so you see how it's physically used. And Ephraim in the English is equal to ah, pa, ra, yum. Party. But those are the individual letters. And the first one we have was ah. Okay. And that ah, as we just learned, is equal to I am. This is a preposition that happened in the front. Now, par is fruit, so that would be considered the root word. So essentially means I am fruitful. That's what a par means. Next, we did Jacob. Jacob is the English. In the Hebrew, let's do the English version first. It's Yaquab. Okay. And Yaquab. So that's how it's actually pronounced. Okay. But the Ya, it's a preposition. It stands for heal. He. And the Iquab equals heal. He heals. So this was coming out of Genesis 25, verse 26. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. And his name was called Jacob. He grabbed the heel of Esau. So his name actually means something physical. Jacob's name was renamed to Israel. And Israel is Yah, Shar, Allah. Yah, Shar, Allah. Now, again, the Yah, just in the beginning, it's the preposition. He, Shar, is prince. Allah, power. He's the prince of power. The point is, you're seeing that in the beginning of the word, you're seeing how the prepositions are being used. Next, let me show you what we did last time as far as the possessive adjective at the end of the word. Okay. I wrote these here at the end. The preposition was before. Okay. And I taught you your name. Now, how it's actually written in Hebrew was Sham, which means name. But at the end of the Sham, there's a Ka. And that Ka is your. So because it appears at the end of the word, that Ka is actually your. This part is name. All right. So now We're going to do something to build on last week's. I brought you all the way up to here a little bit quicker. Now we get to have more fun in now forming these words. Now we're going to do our first sentence. We know what your name is. Now we're going to say, what is your name? Here's our first sentence. What is Ma? M-A-H. Okay, so in the ancient, M and the Ha, Ma. What? What your name? So what your name So what is your name? Is equal to Ma Shum name Ka your. What your name? Now we got our first sentence we created. Any questions at all on the possessive adjectives and or the prepositions? Okay, great. Let's go now a little deeper. This is actually what brought me into this school. We're about to cover next. Because when I first started learning, I was learning from the Yiddish man and reading his Yiddish book. And I was trying to pronounce the name. And Captain QADASH brought me to this board. On the very first day, I met him outside. And I wrote the name down on the board in the modern Hebrew. And I said, how do you say that? Because everyone just can't seem to get the name right. This is what brought me to the school. And it is with great honor that I am teaching this class right now to get to this point, because this was my mystery solved. And this was solved for me on my first day ever in the school. Thanks to Captain QADASH. So what we're going to do is find out the name. So when you see the word Lord in capital letters in the King James Version, and you actually translate the characters behind and you see the Hebrew characters, you're going to see Lord is Yah, Ha, Wah. Now, I was doing the Yiddish tongue, so I was doing Yahuwah, but it was Yahweh. I was like, where did you get that from? And that's when Captain QADASH showed me the real ancient tongue, the holy tongue, the LASHAWAN QADASH. LASHAWAN means tongue. QADASH is holy. So that's why this is the fundamentals of the holy tongue, part 3 of the class, to bring you up to this grand finale of what brought me into the school. So Yahweh in the ancient, now we know our characters, Yah, ha, wa. And then how you pronounce that, we use our connectors. Ya, ha, wa. And in the Hebrew, how it's preserved is ya, ha, wa. So I said to Captain Kadata first day, I drew this on the board. I was like, how do you say that? I'm like, this is Yahuwah. He's like, no. It's Yahweh. I'm like, Yahweh? Where did you get that from? Well, now I understand. You know what's really cool about this? You want to know if he exists or not? Watch when you rearrange this. Yah, ha, wa. Looks like a person. This is a highly informed of intelligence. This is not accidental. This is really, really unique. So I've got the father's got the head, he's got his arms, he's got his body, he's got his legs. It's pretty wild. Next, we're going to do his son. The son is the savior or deliverer. Okay. So
Keep going.
This is Yah, Ha, Wa, Shai.
I'm sorry, Christ. Real quick, right? So, hey, Shalom Israel, Yabash Miyashah. When you look at this, right? So, if you go on the internet, like you will see a lot of like especially Amalek, which is the fake Jews, like they study this language. They have the Kabbalah, like they have numerology, like they do so much things trying to understand the Hebrew language because the Hebrew language is the first language. It is God's language, and they try to understand certain things. Like they will take letters, trying to add them together and trying to figure things out and see like, wow, this language is so miraculous. So they will do things like this, to say, wow, the head, they do things like this. But as we know, this we developed way later. This is actually, the ancient Hebrew, So of course we'll see things, like this. We'll see a lot of these things on the internet, but in the UPK, we don't subscribe to those theories. You could keep going though, please.
Slide. So why don't we delete this then? We don't subscribe to that theory. So Yahweh Shai. Yah, Ha, Wa, Shai. Yah, Ha, Wa, Shai. And in the modern, Yah, Ha, Wa, Shai. Stop. Come on. All right. And our time check. Post. So now that you know these, we're going to get into the Hebrew salute. that we do. And now that we know these words, we go Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak, a thumb. So we know Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, and this is done to the brothers. So we say a thumb. Notice it's got the M at the end. What's Bahasham? Well, we learned Sham already. That's name. Ha is the. Ba is in. Yahweh. And the name, Yahweh Shai, Barak, which is bless. A thumb, you. Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak, a thumb. And that's when you're saluting a group of brothers. If you were saluting just a single brother, instead of a thumb, it would be a tha with an H. So saying the same thing, instead of addressing the group, you're addressing a single person, you would use a tha. And to the sisters, we say Yahweh, Shamar, I'll, Athan, notice this ends in an N. We're talking to the sisters now, feminine. Bahasham, and then Yahweh Shai. So this means Yahweh, Shamar, which is watch. I'll is over. Athan, you. Bahasham, in the name, Yahweh Shai. So we say that as sisters. Yahweh Shamar, I'll Athan, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. That's the salute we say to the sisters. And there's one more we use when we're saluting the Torah or the scroll. We say Yahweh, Sham, Yahweh Shai, Barak, Yah. So that's the difference when we're actually saluting the Torah. And those are the Hebrew salutes. Time, sir. How much time do we have? Are we good?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 9 o'clock it is. Well, I am Priest and Officer HEADQUATERS, and we are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started out on 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. And since 1969, we've been teaching the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We are the true Jews of the Bible. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Officer Yatazar.
Ozone crack. Clap it up, claps. Clap it up. Give it up to Officer Sha'afra, man. Did an amazing class today. We are the ISUPK, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for a new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months period in which the brother and sister will court each other. After the 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi 3, verses 8 to 10. Ma'ashara, which means 10 in the Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you will like. Upcoming Holy Convocation, which is the Feast of Purim. I believe that is March 13th and March 14th. Make sure you check the bulletin board at your school. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, begin wearing all black. Sister want to join the school, contact your camp leader in your zone. With that, we're going to give one courtesy salute, Imajim, which means to stand. Imajim Shabbat, Imajim Barak, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahshua. To the sisters, Yahweh Shamar Aratam Ba'Hashem Yahshua. Yajamata, dismiss. You.